Hey guys, we are going to go to a person's house. You've seen their one car that they've had on our channel before, and this time we are going over to their house. I believe it could be a storage unit, but I think it's the house. It's in South Florida, and we will be looking at another car in his collection I think you guys are really gonna like. So come along with. So welcome to another episode of Junkyards and Barn Finds with Sean, and I'm Sean. All right, so we're at a house, so you're not going to see at the privacy. I can't show you where the road is or any of that kind of stuff, but you guys probably remember the Cougar. In fact, I know you guys did, because you guys love this Eliminator, and that Eliminator was a tribute car, a perfectly done tribute car, but the vehicle that we actually came to see is the real deal. And so it's black, it's made by Ford, and we came to see this SVT Lightning truck. No, actually we didn't come to see the Lightning truck. What did we come to see?
I think you're after the old Shelby.
So tell me about the Shelby.
Well, it's kind of interesting in that by 1968, they're more of a gentleman's cruiser, not the ground-pounding race cars of the previous 2 years. So they've got just about every option you could get on a Mustang, starting with the deluxe interior. Half of these things were air-conditioned. They all have standard power front disc brakes, power steering. So they're actually pretty cool cruisers. By 1968, black had pretty much fallen out of favor. So I think it's 186.
Now this is the original colors, right? This
Yep.
is the original black with the original, was it buckskin or tan? What did they call that?
They called it the saddle.
Saddle,
Interior.
okay.
So according to Marty, of all the Shelby fastbacks that year, 183 were black, 8 had the saddle interior.
So this is one of 8.
It appears to be, yeah. I've taken some liberties to it. If you look at it closely, if you're a Shelby aficionado, you might not like it, but I don't really care. It's been lowered an inch. It's got high rate springs, front and rear. Everything has been completely and totally taken apart down to the very last.
Now, did you do that? So let's start with, where did you find the car? Where did you get the car from? And how long have you had it for?
The car came out of Michigan well before I knew of it. It had been local out in the Estates, which is
down here in South Florida.
Yes,
so it was down here in South Florida.
It had been taken all apart. It was in primer. It was in pretty decent shape. It wasn't too bad. I finally had bugged the guy for about 4 or 5 years, and he finally sold it to me. So we did have to put in some partial floor sections, but the rest of it was actually pretty good shape, especially for a Michigan car. Quarter panels had some very minor patches at the very bottom. I did have to get new doors for it. The doors were completely shot. The original 302 was long gone. I mean,
okay.
We go back 35 years, and there's no idea where it went. The funny thing is, I shopped all around for a date code correct 302, all over the country.
Right.
And I found one in your neck of the woods, Lehigh Acres.
Okay.
So I found a.
I don't live in Lehigh, but.
Well, that
Right,
area up there.
Right.
Fort
So
Myers.
up in Fort Myers area.
Fort Myers area, yeah. So I was able to procure the block, and again, taking some more liberties because it's not, numbers matching, so I don't really care about that too much.
Right.
So right now the block is a 331 cubic inch using SCAT stroker kit.
Okay.
You can see it's got dual quads on it.
There you go.
That would be an over-the-counter option from the dealer. Shelby never made a dual quad. These were all straight Holly 600 4 barrels.
Now, were these cars, because I know like Shelby took some, was it when this one was made, was this one that was made at the Ford assembly line and then shipped? Because
the originals were K-Code Mustangs, which is the 271 horsepower solid lifter motor. And what they were doing back in the very beginning in 65 is just the hood scoop. Everything was done to make the car faster, a race car.
Okay.
All this other stuff with these kind of scoops, the fiberglass, it wasn't there until 67.
From some guy on YouTube who has a video talking about Shelbys, and he said that they all left the Shelby 65, 66 would leave with 6 cylinders so Shelby could put their racing motors in.
Well, but think about that, because then you have 6-cylinder suspension,
right?
6-cylinder sway bar. I mean, no, they were 271s.
So that's why, guys, when I talk about stuff and I ask the question, is this why? So that way I have people who know because they own them tell us what it is. Yeah,
you do your research, you do your due diligence, because there was a lot of replicas made during the day, back 70s, 80s. In 1977, I had a GT500 stolen from my driveway in Miami when I was a kid. So, and when they finally found it, it had been stripped of all the Shelby parts. So yeah, we do our looking into. This is, Shelby registered in the Shelby registry, so I know it's a real one.
Now, did they come with air conditioning?
Half of them did, but what you're looking at is a Sandine compressor, which is General Motors.
Okay.
The problem is with the old York compressors that Ford used, they were noisy, they were inefficient, they'd have belt slap, and to do away with that, I just went to the newer R134
okay.
AC.
So far we've got the different AC, and we have the dual quads, which was basically could have been a day 2 back in the day. If you bought one of these, you could just go to Ford, say, I want this.
Exactly, you'd get it over the counter and the dealer would install it for you, or if you were able to, you do it yourself. These, all Mustangs started at Ford, okay? And originally in 65, 66, Shelbys were built in California at the LA plant, which was a hangar at the LA airport. When they lost their lease for, I think it was 67 to 8, they went to Michigan, A.O. Smith, and he would put together all the Shelbys that came from the Ford plant there in Michigan.
Okay, so they just stayed right in Michigan instead of shipping them across country.
The first year they used the fiberglass extensively was 67. It was horrible because they were using different vendors, different quality, the unfinished. They would have to hand fit the fiberglass pieces to try to get a good fit to them. If you look at a 67, you can still see it doesn't look that clean. It's a beautiful car, but the fit of the fiberglass is pretty bad. By 68, they had O.A. Smith making all the fiberglass. And it came out much better.
So they use their own molds and everything?
Yeah, a better mold, finished products, in other words.
So what's fiber? So somebody who doesn't know much about what's fiberglass on these?
Okay, it's not all that much. The front nose, the lower valance, the hood, the scoops, end caps, and the deck lid.
Okay.
Everything else, I'm sorry. And of course, the rear panel is the fiberglass panel they put over the original panel.
Now, another question I have, since I got you here, is these lights, were these Shelby designed and made lights, or these lights from a different vehicle that they put on here? Because you hear both stories.
Great question. 1964 T-Bird.
So they're 64 T-Bird. So they're off-the-shelf lights.
Well, let me back up a little bit. 67, I believe, was 67 Cougar. And so you'll see a difference. You won't see the chrome bezel on a 67. Think about it this way. Why would you go try to make something when you could grab it off the shelf? And that's literally what they were doing, because they were trying to make money.
Right.
So why reinvent the wheel when you already have stuff available to you?
So they are, like I said, so if somebody gets an accident with one, they don't have to worry about, oh my God, I got to get a Shelby one. They can still find.
Well, they're all repoed now to begin with.
Yeah. But if they wanted to, back in the day, they would just get one from Ford and they'd say, we're just using this part.
Yeah, remember, everything underneath is Mustang. The interior is Mustang, except for the roll bar, which they put in, and the console. This is what you get in the Mustang.
And this has I noticed the steering wheel on this. A lot of the other ones have the round, although the earlier years, I guess, have the round ones, or there's just two different steering wheels?
Well, in the earlier years, I think they had a wood grain. You could either option, or it was standard, I don't remember. By 68, again, they're trying to not complicate matters, because these were very, very expensive to make man-hour wise, and they were kind of expensive when they sold them. They had a hard time selling some of these things. So anyway, what we're doing here is we're taking a 68 steering wheel, and all we're doing is changing
the
interior insert.
Okay.
So much easier, so much cleaner.
And the speedometer goes up to 140 in these.
Well, this is aftermarket speedometer.
Okay.
Again, a lot of the stuff was missing off the car. It was in pretty bad shape. It had never been wrecked, which is great. It was original to itself as far as numbers matching on all the fender aprons and everything, so that was all good.
And this is a 4-speed car?
Yeah.
Was it originally a 4-speed? Okay, so it's always been a stick car. So
yeah, about half of them were 4-speeds, the other half were automatics, of course. But anyway, the gauges were shot, and instead of going with Ford factory gauges of 1968, I think it's classic Autometer, the best, the latest and the greatest.
Okay.
Just like the Cougar, you want
Right.
to be able to monitor what's going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you drive this. This isn't just this ain't a lawn ornament. This isn't trailered everywhere. You'll drive this to a show, or you'll take it out occasionally for that Sunday night sunset drive over to the beach. Well, I don't know if you go to the beach.
I love my cars, but I'm realistic. It's still a car.
Which is also why you lowered it, so it has better handling, right?
Exactly.
So
it's a safer version, much faster version, more reliable version of what it was originally.
And the same probably reason why you're using the different tires instead of, well, a lot of people go with the 2-ply because they want it to look thing, but a 2-ply tire is a hard riding tire.
Well, if you're old enough like me, it started off on 2-ply, and you realize the difference it made when you went to those brand new fancy radials in the mid 70s.
Yep.
You'd never go back. I mean, remember, the cars would go down the road doing this.
And in fact, I remember even in 82, 83, when I was in high school, like if you could afford radials, it was like a whole different thing. That's what people wanted. We wanted radials, but white tire radials, because everybody had 2-ply because they were cheap. And you could, but if you were doing burnouts, you weren't buying a radial. You just go buy a 2-ply, put an M50 2-ply Cooper or Kelly on the back.
Exactly.
Burn it apart, and then for wintertime you put on your radials because you could actually drive with them.
Yeah, exactly. Remember the hottest cars of the day, the Trans Am? Those were all radial tires. Matter of fact, they even had what do they call it? Radial tuned suspension.
I remember that. Yeah, they used to call it the radial.
Big deal about it. On these rims and tires, all Shelby's actually came with hubcaps. Very fancy, good-looking hubcaps. But these are Shelby optioned wheels, and some were sold over the counter, and almost all of them you'll see now have these type of rims. I should say rim wheel, because a lot of people, myself included, in 1976 when I got that GT500, what's the first thing you did?
Change the wheels,
Absolutely.
just like everybody did.
Hubcaps would be crazy.
Right.
That's embarrassing.
Right. Nobody wanted those.
Most of those things got tossed all those years ago. So you'll see these rims are very, very popular for the 68.
And then, like this, is this a reproduction Cobra air cleaner or?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
I know the real ones are so rare and expensive.
Well, I still have the original single barrel air cleaner, top and bottom, and you can actually tell these real quick. They're thicker, and look at this bottom plate. Instead of being the stamped steel, it's aluminum.
Okay, so that's how you can almost tell a repro.
Just glance at it, you know.
Okay.
Well, there's many things on this car you can glance at and realize. But
it doesn't take away at all from the car to me. I mean, at least it's like, it just makes it a more drivable car. I mean, why would you're not going to try, if you can get away with not using 60s technology that doesn't change the feeling of the car. You know, you're doing stuff that if somebody were to buy a car now, how many people buy a car now and the first thing they do is they take the chip out and they put a computer on it and they stage it up? I don't care. People that buy Vipers are doing that. As soon as they get it, they change the exhaust, they remove certain things, they remove things and add things and retune them. I mean, a tune kit, there was no tune kits back in the day.
Yeah.
And so the things that people do, adding headers or doing all the stuff that you putting different tires on, that's stuff that today people are doing to whatever they buy that's a brand new car, but instead they're doing it electronically with tuners and different things like that. So
this is old school, but it's enjoyable. But again, a lot of people have forgotten, or they weren't around at the time. Driving a carbureted car is totally different than a fuel injected car.
Yeah.
Here you're pumping the gas to get it started. You're waiting for the idle to come back down a little bit.
Hopefully it doesn't flood.
It's, you know, it can be one thing or another. So when they say they don't make them like they used to, I say, well, thank goodness, because they really didn't have the technology back 40, 50 years ago compared to the day.
Again, but for someone who's my age, when you look and you see 2 carburetors, you're like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like the cool factor sometimes as long as it's not your daily driver, the cool factor can outlast your...
Well, two things about the induction system. At the time when I built this, the original styled Cobra intake manifold, it's aluminum, there's Cobra on it, that's what Shelby used. Not the original ones, but the Reproduction ones are unavailable.
Okay.
And they're unavailable for, I think, 8 months at the time. This goes back a few years ago. Well, there's a company that deals with the older dual quad, and I was able to buy the intake manifold and the 2 Hollies. And what they've done is I think they've gone to a 380 or a 390 CFM Holly.
Okay.
So that's why it's not overcarbureted. Those are not 600s, so it would never take it.
Right.
Even a 428 would be too much for that kind of CFM. So they detune them a bit, and you just buy the intake with the 2 carburetors mounted on it. They take out the choke on the back carburetor, so you're running off just the front on the choke. And I think I did find an old magazine that did a test between a single 4-barrel and a dual quad setup. You lose about 15 to 25 horsepower in a dual quad, but then you've got the blade.
Right.
So, and on top of it, for me, I was at a standstill until I could get some kind of induction system.
Gotcha.
So it made my mind up very quickly.
Now, this has got a points and coil system.
Sort of.
Vacuum, or is this, because it kind of looks that way, or is this the one that has the appearance of it but is actually...
It's exactly what you think. It's Bertronics. If you look at the coil at the front,
okay,
if you're a Ford nutty guy, you'll spot 2 wires off the coil as opposed to 1 on each.
Oh yeah, okay.
So try to keep it clean, but when you're doing all this other stuff, that's like the roller camshaft on the inside, the roller rock arms.
Right.
You don't see that stuff, but again, that to me is a no-brainer.
So yeah, if you can do a day 2 thing, which is to increase, just like people who do tunes, they might tune it. You can't tell the difference on a tune because it's electronic, but it tells the brain something different. But it looks the same. But it does.
I did try to keep it true to Shelby form, and if you look at stuff like the fasteners, these are all correct. This is how the car came. This is its original export brace.
Okay.
That came with the car. The buck tag over there tells them what to put on the cars that came down the assembly line.
Right there. Okay.
If you look at, there's codes on there, stuff like DE, I believe, is dual exhaust.
Right.
FD, fold down rear seat. PS is there for the power steering.
Right.
Little things like these straps, they're reproduced, but this is what they were using, these little guys.
Okay, and I noticed the headers have a different design. They're like a dual Y header.
Well, Shelby didn't have headers on the 68.
Okay.
And I don't think the 67, but I'm not the 67 guy. 65, 66, yes. They were tri-Y headers.
Okay.
These are a reproduction type
of those.
Of the tri-Ys.
And then the stickers on here, I think, there's the one, the Shelby Reproduction that has the, they normally have, the engine displacement. So this says 428 or 302, right?
Yeah,
so.
It's very generic. This is interesting. A lot of people you'll see, they've got these on the wrong side. They got the heads of the bolts. And what they were doing is, it took me forever to figure this out. But finally, you look at the old pictures of these things at the showroom.
Right.
And you talk to some of the Shelby experts of the Mustang Club of America.
And they went in through the
That's how they
wheel
did
well.
It. Yep. So little things like that, I tried to keep it. Some things I just couldn't bear to do it. The export brace, the bolts on the firewall.
Right.
Most of them came without washers.
And
I couldn't do it. And it even had the marks from the head of not having washers on it. But, again, as Shelby aficionado would see that and go, oh, that's wrong. Well, I know.
Yeah. It's okay.
Calm down, it's all right.
The world's not going to end today.
Yep.
So, and has the fog lights in. Now, were the fog lights with every Shelby, or is that another option that came with them?
It did, and they created havoc. The 67s created havoc with the different states for lighting DMV requirements because they had inboard high beams, I believe they were.
Oh.
And
Oh yeah.
They had a hell of a time. I can't remember exactly. Again, the '67 guys know this stuff back and forth. But the fog lamps were on all the '68s. They had two different types. One, and I cannot remember. There was Lucas, and then there was one made for an Italian firm. They had problems with those two, trying to get them passed. But little things like this looks like I decided to go nuts with a stapler.
Right.
This is what big block cars and all the Shelbys came with. It helps with the cooling.
Okay. So
if
yes.
you go to a 428 Mustang, a 390 Mustang, you'll see this.
And now you don't have this is deleted.
No, it's supposed to be there. I've taken it off because it kept interfering.
Okay. And plus these twist down holds. That's what they're there for. It's the hold.
Exactly.
And if they can hold a race car, they can hold a street car because you're not doing 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, I think somebody asked me about the pins on the Cougar, and I was trying to explain it's a marketing gimmick. These cars in '69 did not go as fast as the NASCAR.
Right.
But they're selling cars, and they want you to think it's just like that NASCAR win on Sunday, sell on Monday.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll be honest with you. A guy named Jerry Duffy, and Jerry, if you're watching this, you remember because it was the day the TV or the Michael Jackson video Thriller came out, and he had a '69 Camaro Z28 clone at the time. This is 1982, 83, and he had just repainted the whole car. It was red with black stripes, brand new vinyl roof, brand new steel cowl induction hood, and had the holes for these. Put it down. We forgot to put the latch in, and in the very first drive we took it out. The hood came up, smashed the cowl induction, the windshield, put a crease right down the roof. So if you have these, ever since then, every muscle car I've ever had, I've either installed these just to have as a safety, so I remember to put pins in them. Because you have that happen to you once at speed, you don't ever want to have it again.
Oh yeah, the idea of it is pretty horrifying. Number one, you can't see it.
Right.
As you're going out the road.
Because it doesn't come off. It's not like the hood comes off. It just bends and smashes. Now this has two horns. Is that typical as well?
Yeah, I think virtually all the cars have two horns. So you have a high and a low. One thing they did on this car for these air-conditioned cars, normally your horn would be sitting right here.
Right.
So they would just relocate it over to the side because of the RC.
And then you have two mirrors on this, and is that typical Shelby, or you don't know?
It's just generally the driver's side remote mirror. But for me, I always add the outside right side mirror.
Okay, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
And especially if you live down here in South Florida.
You know, you talk about hood pins. If you think about this, what's going on with the Shelby using the newer style hood pins and the Cougar being 1 year newer using the old style.
Yeah.
Again, Shelby being a small little company could change on a dime.
Right.
So what he's got here, you'll actually find on a 1970 Mach 1.
Okay.
So he's running months and months and sometimes a year ahead of schedule where he can make those changes with a factory. It's like turning a ship.
Right.
It took him a long time to get there.
Now, these scoops on this, because it wasn't one of the race cars, are these are decorative, or are they functional? Like, is there an actual hole behind these, or are they more?
For 65 and 66, you'd find the tubing behind these.
Right,
This does not have
for the brake, right?
Rear brake, they would ventilate for the rear brake. This does act as an air extractor, has nothing to do with performance.
Okay.
But it looks cool as heck.
Yeah. But it does, but it pulls the air out of the back without letting water in through where would normally, if it wasn't a Shelby, there would be a vented window there.
True, but again, to keep it in perspective, why did they do this? This is getting the look of a GT40.
Right.
Because if you look at a GT40, they look very similar.
Right.
Very, very similar. And of course, that's another Shelby car. So why not pull from stuff you already have off the shelf?
And whatever wins on Sunday back in the day, a win Sunday sold Monday.
Yep.
So
that's what they were doing. So back to the interior, Shelby did add the console. All the cars got the console. It's a bit of a handmade thing out of, I guess you had a molded box. But,
okay. And then they would have to, I guess, heat. Do that. I don't know
guess.
how they do that.
I don't know if they're doing it. I'm sure that you'd have somebody subcontracted out for that. But the good thing he would do is add the oil gauge and the amp meter.
Oh, okay.
While those are not original,
But they're the holes.
They're pretty much what the style of the Stewart Warner that was under. They call them green gauges. So they have green lines to them.
And I don't know whether anybody actually thought they were going to sit in the back seats. Now, are those the original seat belts?
Yes.
Okay, because that's a big thing too. I know people are always looking to see if the seat belts are date coded correct for the car, and I don't know why that's a big deal, but it seems to be.
Well, I think maybe if you're looking for an investment, yes, you want to make sure you've got the real deal.
Yeah.
But for people like me, I can't go out and buy one of these because I don't know what I'm buying. I have no idea.
Right.
I do know all the problems I used to have with these cars. Realize, Mustangs, Camaros, Barracudas, they weren't really made to last more than 4 years.
Everything back then was kind of, they were hard. They expected you to get a new car every 5 years.
So I'm not going to pay 110 or whatever these things would go for, not knowing if I've rusted out Calvins.
Right.
Because this doesn't come off. This is a weld job. You have to take this off and put it back on. Those are different.
Right.
And they fixed it by then. Those didn't rot.
You mean on the Cougar?
On the Cougar and the Mustang.
Okay.
This piece does detach, but on these they don't. And the way these hats were made, leaves and debris would gather in here, and rust them out.
Wow.
Yeah, and so.
And that's a integral part of the shell, right?
Yeah.
So.
Or it's a unibody construction.
Yeah. Now, do these have the connectors, the frame connectors on it? Did they need, or did they have a full frame? They don't have a full frame.
No,
right?
it's a unibody frame.
Okay.
And I guess in hindsight, if they were drag racing and they could really start hooking up, that's when things would start to twist. But on the street tires, I don't think you're going to find that kind of.
I just didn't know if they came. And then the last thing is Louvers. You see a lot of the guys that owns these, they have the black Louvers on, which I think Louvers came with Mach 1s, or they were an option from a dealer.
It was an option for the Mach 1. Any of what they would call the sport back.
Okay.
So they didn't call them fastbacks; they were called sport backs. For 69, 70, you had the Boss series, and even 71, maybe 72. All those Mustangs with the fastback, sports back design, you get Louvers on them, but they were an option.
Right.
But very popular nowadays.
Yeah.
But not for 68.
Okay.
They weren't around yet.
So that was if someone was 68, they're just putting them on because they think it looks cool, which actually kind of looks okay. I don't know. I had them on a Camaro once back in the 80s, and they rattled so badly that I took them back off.
My thing is, I can see where they could be useful, but seeing how it sits in an air conditioned garage.
Yeah, I think up north, because I grew up in Pennsylvania, you can't tint windows up there. So you tint windows and you have a rear window defroster, it destroys the tint. It did that to my Mustang that I just got rid of. But so if the Louvers at least kept the windows clean when the snow would come.
Yeah, I can see that.
So and in the summer it kept it.
Notice the antenna on the back.
Yeah.
And here's something that's not really for just looks. And here's also the only blim I've got. This showed up 2 years after the paint, so now it's about 8 years ago. And I guess it shrunk. The
Bondo? Or
not the Bondo, there's very, very little
or
Bondo.
That surface
it's the
putty that they put on.
It's the primer coat, the sanding coat.
Right, the filler coat, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I've never seen that before. I painted this car, I've never seen that before, so I don't know what's going on. But back to the antenna, the reason it's back here is because it had tremendous radio interference because of the fiberglass hood not shielding the ignition system.
Well, that's the same. So the Corvettes, when you look at a C3 Corvette, if you ever watch C3, now Chevy has the sparkulators in the back. And if you look at the C3 Corvettes, because they're fiberglass, they had a chrome piece that goes over them.
Yeah,
and that's the whole reason the shielding that they had those was for the same reason. So that's why they had that, and I think that's probably why they have the antenna in the back as well.
If you look close, you'll see even on a Mustang, they would come with these little tabs or brass.
Right.
They're made to contact the hood. I put this back on, but I bent it down, and I don't really know if Shelby took those off or just didn't care about them. But they serve no purpose except to scratch paint on a fiberglass hood. But that was an effort to try to keep the ignition noise down from the radio.
But that would have been meant if you had a metal hood, though, right?
Exactly.
Because fiberglass hood doesn't matter. You can put all the contact points you want. It ain't going anywhere.
Exactly. That's why they went ahead and relocated to the farthest place in the back they could go.
Well, it's just an amazingly beautiful car, especially for one that's driven.
It's a lot of fun. It's two different personalities between these two cars.
Yeah, and actually that's like a class subtle. People look at, they know what it is. It's cool. That's like the adult car. And then this is like I feel like being really loud and obnoxious today.
Yeah.
So this is hey, I'm going to do burnouts and go to the NFL game. This is, we're going out to dinner.
Yeah, this is, I'm going to try to find a windy road to really have fun with, and this is more of a nice straight piece of asphalt, make sure nothing's in the way.
But they do have, but I mean, you could definitely see the family resemblance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a cool thing.
And they're both, you know, again, as I got older, I like my comfort, so we're both power steering, power front disc brakes. This has got the four-wheel Willwood racing disc brakes.
Right.
Air conditioner, tilt.
Now, is this
tilt away.
disc brakes all around, or
No.
drums in the back?
No,
And
Shelby's came with the front disc brake, and on a light little car like this, they're actually quite good.
okay.
In the day, they were fantastic, but regular drum brakes in the rear.
Well, I mean, I've seen a lot of Shelbys, and for some reason, like I said, that steering wheel to me is and maybe I just haven't seen many this year's, but this really does, like, it's weird. It looks like a very comfortable, like if you look at the 65s, the 66s, especially, you know, they have, especially the race ones, they have like the cut window here, and they don't look comfortable. They look like a race car that's tried to being on the street so that at least your butt doesn't fall asleep in the seat. Where this actually has, this has a very comforting, soothing interior between the color, but with the padding and the seats look like they're a lot thicker than the original ones. I mean, just the padding itself seems to be a thicker one than the earlier Shelbys were.
Well, everybody was going to a little bit more comfort, but definitely the marketing trend for Shelbys. Again, these things sold for, here's an invoice on this one. This thing had a sticker price of $4,927.
And that's
a lot of money.
That's when cars were like $2,000,
Exactly.
$1,800.
And I bet you a Corvette might have been about that same price or even less. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Corvette guys will know.
And
But that's a lot of money for a Mustang. And what they were finding is 65 and 66, you had to be really, truly aficionado to put up with what we just talked about.
Right.
They were loud. They had glass packs. They were noisy. I think they had no insulation. Roll-up windows. The whole thing was just, it was a brute. No power steering, no power brake.
Right.
Great brakes, but you had to really drive the darn car.
Right.
By 68, 67, and especially by 69, they were looking for a much wider audience. It's all about the numbers. It's all about selling cars.
Well, plus by then people knew what a Shelby was, because at the beginning they don't know what a Shelby is.
Yeah.
So by then it had a performance heritage. People knew the name. They knew it was going to be a high-end, fast. Like even if it wasn't a fast, it was going to be considered a muscle car. Even if you couldn't, by 70, the SS Chevelle 454 LS6 I think was, that was a monster. Mm-hmm. But nobody hardly bought them, because if you looked at those, you could get an LS5, an LS, a 396 that on the street looks exactly the same, sounds the same. It just, you're going to be a couple seconds slower, and it's going to be a lot more manageable. And so this is a kind of same thing. It's a lot more manageable vehicle that if you have kids, because all the guys probably that bought the original ones, by this time they got families, or they could throw kids in the back because you don't have that back seat delete.
Well, think about that Chevelle too, the LS7.
Yeah.
God,
oh yeah, the big.
Wasn't that like a $700 option?
That's what I'm saying.
On a
yeah.
$3,000 car.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. So
I can see where they didn't. But a lot of this is also Ford was really having much more of a hand in this.
Yeah.
And they were pushing Shelby to get away from performance and more towards the luxury. And again, it was all about making money. Not a bad.
It became a brand.
Term.
By this time, it's a brand. Shelby was a brand. It wasn't just a option.
They're selling cars because of this race heritage.
Right.
Not because this is a race car anymore.
No, it's now a brand of car versus a guy, people who knew who Shelby was, who were buying the car because it's Shelby. Now people are buying it because it's a Cobra, because it is a Shelby Cobra at that point. So, but it's just, I mean, I think this is like, I like these Shelbys more than I like that
Yeah, the 69,
the
70.
the 69 to 70. I think that's when it stepped away from really being a Mustang to me, the look. This is like the last year to me that is a Mustang Shelby based on a Mustang type thing, that they didn't kind of really start stepping away from it. But that's just,
yeah, and a lot of the Shelby people, if they're really hardcore, they'll say, "Oh, it's not a, it's a 68, so it doesn't really
right."
You know, it's whatever.
Well, it's like people now that buy the Shelbys and the GT 500Rs, but they come from Ford, and they're like, "Well, that's not a real Shelby." It's a real Shelby.
It's a real Shelby, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, sorry, Cal Shelby doesn't work out of his old, you know, aviation
exactly.
at an airport that doesn't exist anymore, putting them together because he's dead. So
hey, everything changes,
yeah.
But you know, good point. These 69, guess what a 70 was? A re-vend 69. They couldn't sell them.
Yeah.
By that time, they were very, very expensive. A GT 350 had a simple 351 Windsor 4-barrel.
Yeah.
Cast iron exhaust, no big deal. The 500s at least were 428 Cobra jets and SCJs, which was great. But they had such a hard time selling them for 70. They were leftover 69s. Wow. So it shows you which way the wind was blowing.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you letting us come into your home, talk about the car.
No problem.
I mean, I met you a while back and heard about the car, and today was a perfect day to let us come here. And
I'm glad you could drop by.
And so you could see, you guys have all seen his other car on the videos. Only a couple of different times I think we've seen them, but we did that talk about 3 or 4 months ago, and ever since I wanted to come and see this, and so I appreciate it. And you guys, if you like this kind of thing, I know it's just two old guys talking about cars for a bit, but sometimes that's a good video. And if you like it, subscribe. If you don't like it, still subscribe, because you'll probably find something you like. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Guys, while we're here, and we have a Lightning here, and if you don't know anything about this, is the 2003 Lightning. So I know sometimes I put these on and people bypass them, but we're on, so we're gonna take a look at it real quick.
Well, we have one little tiny surprise. These come...
Because they come with, you said, a Whipple supercharger?
Well, no, they come with the Eaton supercharger from Ford, a 5.4 modular V8. And a quick trick some of the Lightning owners will do.
Oh.
This is my daily driver, so obviously I don't really care. But what's fun about this thing is the Kenny Bell twin screw supercharger replacing the factory original one.
Nice.
So we're running about 125 more horses than...
So what do you think the horsepower is total?
I don't know. They were, I think, 385 from the factory, so I think we can conservatively say 475 maybe
for a daily driver.
Well, this is what I've read on the Kenny Bell site.
Now, I mean, now that we're in where we're at, as far as gas prices, what's that do to the gas mileage on it?
I have no idea.
Or you don't know?
I don't really drive that much anymore.
Oh, okay.
I needed a pickup truck, and for the fun factor, it's kind of hard to beat.
And is this the stock forced air induction that came with it, or does that come with that's all part of the package?
The JLP box. Kenny Bell's doing their own thing.
Okay.
People that know these things, they know exactly what can go wrong, and they'll do stuff.
Pretty dependable. How long have you had it for?
This is my second one.
Okay.
I've had this one for 3 years. I had the other one for 7 years.
5.4.
No, not really. It's what was the 302? It was a 5 liter.
Okay, yeah.
So I guess it's going to be about a 330 cubic inch.
Okay. So it's like a bored out 5 liter? Is that how they...
Well, it's a totally different engine being the modular.
Okay. Oh, okay.
It's that new generation. Well, to me, it's new generation stuff.
Right. So...
Anyway, daily driver, a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, and it's black. It looks like it's in great condition. And it's got the specialty tires and nice badging and stuff.
Well, they heavy duty, automatic, heavy duty, limited slip 373 rear end, heavy duty suspension. Big, what are they, 295s all the way around. So, is
that a different body package? It looks...
It's the old, what do they call it, flare side?
Yeah.
And they stopped making them, I think, in 2005.
Okay.
And 2004 is the last year that I think they made the SUVs.
SVTs.
SVTs. Lightning.
Yeah.
But it's a
well, you got all
for a truck. It's great.
So your daily driver is a supercharged blown truck, basically, and...
What can I say?
And then your other toys are pick your day.
Pretty much, that sums it up.
So, well, it's been a great Saturday. I appreciate everything you did. Hopefully these guys will appreciate it. You guys really appreciate it because they open our house, when guys open their houses to us and stuff to let us see what they have. It can be a scary thing. So, but between dogs, weapons, and booby traps and everything else, I don't think he has any problems with anybody coming. So, all right, guys, talk to you later. April, should they subscribe to this channel even if they don't like cars today for this one?
Probably just for this one.